My name is Charlie Katzman, and in this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about benzene exposure and its toxic effects. Just a few days ago, this article came out about benzene exposure in drinking water affecting millions of people in a city in northwest China. Water tested from treatment plants showed benzene levels 16 times higher than the normal amount. According to the article, the residents panicked when they heard this news, and many of them had no idea what benzene was. Hopefully, the information in this presentation will provide a better understanding of what benzene is and a few of the ways it can be harmful. Benzene, which is displayed in the picture at the bottom right, is an aromatic hydrocarbon ring with the formula C6H6. An aromatic hydrocarbon just means it is a ring made up of carbon and hydrogen with alternating double and single bonds between the carbons. Benzene toxicity is complex and can occur many ways, but I'll talk more about this a little bit later. Other names for benzene include its chemical formula C6H6, as well as benzyl and cyclohexatriene. Benzene's chemical structure is made up of a six-membered carbon ring with three doubled bonds. Each carbon has a single hydrogen atom attached to it. It is the simplest of the aromatic hydrocarbons, and it is generally a fairly stable compound. In the past, benzene was commonly used in industrial solvents and as a reagent in scientific laboratories, among some other things. As industrialization expanded during World War I, so did the use of benzene. Shortly, studies began to link benzene with higher incidences of blood disorders and cancers, and it is now tightly regulated in the workplace in most developed countries. Presently, benzene is used primarily as an intermediate to form other chemicals such as polymers, detergents, paint thinners, and pesticides. It is also used as an additive to gasoline to increase the octane rating, though this practice has decreased since the 1950s. Additionally, benzene is produced as a byproduct of ethylene and propylene manufacture. Over 50% of exposure to benzene is due to smoking, both first and second hand. Other significant sources of benzene exposure include automobile exhaust and gasoline vapors, as well as some consumer paints, solvents, and other products. Despite being well regulated by the government, occupational exposure to benzene still occurs, though it is limited mostly to those working in the petroleum industry and auto workers and mechanics. Studies have also shown that very limited, if any, exposure comes from food or water, or from living close to chemical plants. One thing that is for sure is that benzene exposure is mostly due to personal activities, especially smoking and traveling in vehicles. There are a couple properties I would like to mention about benzene that increase its potential to cause harm. First, benzene is highly volatile, meaning it generally prefers to be in its vapor form. This means it can easily evaporate into the air from solid materials such as paints or solvents. Benzene's volatility leads to increased benzene concentrations in indoor air, which is often poorly circulated. This can increase personal exposure dose by inhalation, ingestion, or dermal absorption, and increase the chances of a cancer-causing event occurring. In my opinion, the most important components of benzene's toxicity are the many toxic metabolites it can form. Now I would just like to mention a few important toxic metabolites of benzene and how they can cause effects. Benzene is first metabolized primarily in the liver by C1P2E1 to benzene oxide. Benzene oxide can then take two paths. It can either be hydrolyzed into catechol and 1,2-benzoquinone, or it can form phenol. Phenol can then undergo further metabolism to produce hydroquinone and 1,4-benzoquinone. So how do these metabolites cause toxic effects? Well, the phenol-derived quinones can produce reactive oxidative species and cause DNA damage, while both benzoquinones and benzene oxide are electrophilic, meaning they can bind to proteins or nucleic acids and interfere with cell function. One case study of shoe workers in Istanbul, Turkey exemplifies the negative health consequences that metabolites can have. The study examined shoemakers in poorly ventilated conditions who were constantly exposed to benzene for a mean exposure time of 9.7 years, during which concentrations reached levels as high as 210 to 650 parts per million. The results of this study found that 26 out of the 28,500 subjects who participated developed leukemia or pre-leukemia, which was significantly higher than the number in the general population. Follow-up studies by the same author identified acute myeloid leukemia, or AML, as the primary cancer caused by benzene exposure. And they also found associations with other blood disorders, including aplastic anemia and a few other blood cancers. There are many ways benzene can exert its toxic effects, so I wanted to just describe one mechanism that has recently been proposed describing how benzene induces AML. As mentioned before, benzene is first metabolized in the liver by a cytochrome P450 enzyme called CYP2E1. The metabolites are then transported to bone marrow using blood proteins, which is helpful because many benzene metabolites have short half-lives, and binding to blood protein can help prevent degradation. Benzene metabolites in the bone marrow can get into stem cells, where it can be particularly dangerous for a couple of reasons. First, DNA damage in a stem cell can be passed on to many progenitor cells, making many potential cancer target cells if it has significant mutations. Second, stem cells are regulated differently than somatic cells and are more likely to persist and not go through apoptosis in the event of cell damage. Metabolites can then cause mutations and chromosomal abnormalities through a variety of mechanisms, a few of which I will describe. First, some metabolites can generate reactive oxygen species and cause oxidative stress to the cell. Some metabolites have been shown to form DNA adducts. Repair of these adducts is often error-prone, which can introduce more mutations to the genome. Lastly, events such as TOPO2 inhibition due to a mutation in a stem cell can cause chromosomal abnormalities. This has been shown to decrease the fidelity of DNA repair mechanisms, leading to more mutations. Eventually, many mutations accumulate and begin to affect critical genes, including cytokines, cell cycle regulators, and adhesion proteins. Generally, a combination of multiple mutations in important genes is necessary for a cancerous event to occur. Once enough mutations build up, a cell can transform from a normal stem cell into a cancer precursor cell. Normally, our immune systems would detect a transformed cell and stop it, but benzene and benzene metabolites have been shown to depress the immune system, allowing clonal cells to escape detection and proliferate, leading to cancer. That's it. Thanks for listening.